Hey y'all, B007 back for another 10-minute spoiler-free movie review. And today I'm talking about the latest Marvel blockbuster release, which is Doctor Strange. Bizarrely, it's released today in the UK, October 25th, presumably to cash in on the fact that it's the school half-term holidays, and it's released in the USA on November 5th. So we are now definitely in the era of the Marvel Cinematic Universe when we're going to the B-list and C-list characters. Doctor Strange is not someone I'd ever heard of before. I'm not a massive comic book fan. Nonetheless, I was pretty much excited about this movie because it stars Benedict Cumberbatch from UK TV's Sherlock and the latest Star Trek film. So, it has a great cast. It also stars Tilda Swinton, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Benedict Wong, Rachel McAdams, and even Michael Stuhlbarg wasted in a very small role. So this is a classy production. And I think we've all come to expect that Marvel movies are going to have a level of production design and CGI that's, really good quality, even though they tend to choose these sort of not second rate, but less famous directors. This one is Scott Derrickson, who previously has done, I think, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. But I do feel that there's a calculated plot by Marvel to pick these sort of maybe hungrier directors who aren't going to be as demanding and who will be more malleable and willing to do films that are in the Marvel look rather than trying to create their own path. And who knows, after Suicide Squad, maybe this is the way to go. Maybe having a director who wants to kind of go against the studio doesn't end up with a coherent movie. Anyways, so we get to Doctor Strange, and I think my overall take on this film is that it's a good time. I had a good time watching it. It's 2 hours long. I don't regret seeing it. It was kind of funny. The visual effects were good. The art direction was really lovely, actually. A lot of it takes place in kind of mystical Asian temples in Kathmandu, and that all looks really beautiful. And some of the work they did with the relics, showing these beautiful old samurai swords and helmets, was just beautiful. But overall, I feel this is an incredibly derivative movie, and if I'd seen this 5 years ago before I was so used to the Marvel tropes, maybe I would have given it a higher rating and a better review. But by now, I think we're so used to those tropes that it just feels a bit samey. So as I tell you what happens in this movie, you're going to see just how ridiculous this is. So effectively, you have Doctor Strange, the hero, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And like Iron Man, he's this rich, successful, very intelligent, very arrogant man. And just like Iron Man, he's brought low by an accident. And in this case, he's basically texting while driving and has a car crash that ruins his hands. So suddenly this famous surgeon who defines himself by his job cannot operate. And this brings about a kind of existential crisis. And he ends up effectively going to Nepal to find the Ancient One. Controversy here, because it's played by a white woman, not an Asian guy. But I think that anyone who knows Tilda Swinton knows that she's just perfectly cast as this sort of ethereal, otherworldly being. And she really is the best thing about this movie, hands down, by far. So he goes through this kind of Harry Potter / Karate Kid training. And we discover that he's actually got this huge aptitude for the kind of learning they're teaching. And what they're basically teaching is that we're part of a multiverse, which we know because it's Marvel. And that what these guys do, these Jedi Masters, because it really does look like a bunch of Jedi Masters, is that they tap energy from other parts of the multiverse to cast spells. And they can control space and indeed time, it turns out. So one of the big kind of philosophical controversies here is that one of the other Jedi Masters, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, called Mordo, believes that their job is to preserve natural law. So actually they're trying to sort of use magic to keep bad magics from other parts of the universe from messing things up on Earth. And what the villain of the piece, played by Mads Mikkelsen, he doesn't, again, really do much. He just has cool, horror show makeup on. What he wants to do is actually use that magic to, have control over time and get everlasting eternal life. Fair dues. Sounds pretty grim to me. But anyway, that's the basic hokey kind of plot motivator. Effectively, the first hour of this film is just Doctor Strange having the accident and training up. And he even gets a Harry Potter sort of magic cloak, which actually, it reminded me a bit of Terry Pratchett's luggage, that it just sort of turns up and maybe unwittingly kind of protects him and does stuff. And the second half is basically battle scene after battle scene as Doctor Strange goes up against the big bad. The CGI is good. It is, as you'll have seen from the trailers, it's very similar to Inception, where you have the Christopher Nolan style bending of cities. And it's well done, but I'm glad they didn't overuse it, because I think that would have really looked derivative. Other than that, it's your standard Marvel mid-tier CGI. I think what I really objected to, however, is that a lot of the comedy felt very much like it was written to be uttered by Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark Iron Man. I mean, it's that kind of self-deprecating, kind of unimpressed, cynical wit, which is funny and it's good, but it just feels like if every movie is going to have that same comedic tone, and you're going to get 3 of these movies or 2 of these movies a year, then it's just kind of boring. And I don't think it really suited Benedict Cumberbatch, this Americanized version of Tony Stark. I don't know, it just at times felt like he was trying to be like Sherlock, which is supercilious and right. And then even like, you know, the character in Guardians of the Galaxy played by Chris Pratt, who has this love of 70s music. Well, there it makes sense because his mum gave him the cassette tape from the 70s, so it has an emotional reason. And yet we open this film with Doctor Strange basically listening to 70s cheesy tunes on the operating table, and it's kind of like, why is that there? Just to show that he has a good memory, or, you know, why does it have to be 70s music again? I just don't really see the point. So overall, I felt that this movie, it was fine. It was, you know, fun to watch. It didn't have really anything new. And it just feels like Marvel has created this machine, and this machine can produce very glossy, very polished movies that are entertaining, but they're not pushing the envelope forward. And I find that sad. You know, they've made so much money off these properties. They should have the confidence to really try and do something new and push the boundaries out. And I'm not asking them to create like a Christopher Nolan Batman Begins, resetting the way in which comic books are done. But, you know, this is getting boring. And I feel that for DC, if DC can actually get its act together after the horror show that was Batman versus Superman and then Suicide Squad, it actually has some grounds to furrow here. Like it can actually do something interesting, because Marvel's actually leaving the game open to them. So that's it. That's my review of Doctor Strange. It has a running time of 112 minutes. It's rated PG-13. It's out now in the UK and Ireland. It rolls out globally up until November 5th when it's out in the USA. Then, as usual, the Japanese release is January 27th, so a long way after that. So I'm sure lots of you are going to go see it this week and next week. If you agree or disagree with my take, then please let me know what you think on social media. I can be found at B007.com for full written reviews, at B007 on Twitter and Instagram. So feel free to get in touch. Okay, thank you for listening.